What's up, man?
Not much. How are you?
Good. StreamYard kind of broke, but now it's saying it's working, so we're going to see what happens. Now it's live. So nobody on LinkedIn is going to get the cool intro today. Well, they will on our personal LinkedIns, just not on the UKON page, because at the last minute, I clicked go live and it said, maybe not.
We got it. I feel like we like the Mega Man music more than everybody else does anyway. So
yeah, that's true. That's fair. Hey, welcome to Hotcakes, everyone. It is a Thursday instead of a Friday, which is not that big of a deal, but that's the way we're doing it this week. We're excited. We got lots to share with everybody today. Some cool cyber updates. We got a really cool guest today who I met like 2 weeks ago. So Andy knows way more about him than I do. We'll bring him on in a few minutes. But we always like to kick this thing off with a little hot cake action, which sounds weird now that I just said it. Sharing a hot take about hot cake also sounds weird. All right. So moving into that segment, though, Andy, I wanted to share a little personal story. So I opened up my mail yesterday, and I actually got a letter from my mortgage broker saying that there had been a data leak. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at that, and I'm like, I read the letter because I've seen, you get emails all the time when your stuff is put in the comp. But I'm like, okay, this is my mortgage broker. Let's see what was taken. And the only thing that was potentially leaked, we've seen no data of this, but the only thing that was potentially leaked were social security numbers, which then begs the question of like, hey, so what are you guys doing to protect your social security number? I mean, not that, but like, everyone's social security number is out there. I mean, I hate to say it, but I don't think anybody's social security number is safe from the dark reaches of the internet at this point. So, except maybe newborns who haven't yet been logged into a system. But other than that, it's just wild. So I was just thinking about it. And it's like those credit monitoring letters you get. It's just like, man, how many credit monitoring services can I sign up for at one given time? And is the credit monitor like it's just interesting when you see it on the other side, right? Because you're seeing a company cover their butt. We're always talking about insurance and saying, all right, here are the things that pay out. Here's what happens. And then you get a letter and you're like, I wonder if they had insurance because it would have paid out. And but it's interesting because like credit monitoring and reporting and like all that kind of stuff, you see it on the coverages. But then when you're actually on the receiving end of it, you're like, well, this kind of stinks. Like, yeah. I'm looking at this letter. I'm like, this doesn't really, being in the industry that I'm in, knowing that I get 1 free year of credit monitoring. I was like, well, what about 4 years from now when that same social security number that you leaked is sitting out there? And it really just gets me thinking of the whole thing of like credit monitoring. And like, it becomes it's almost like a way of them saying, we're sorry for not being good with your data. And it's like, but it doesn't really help.
Here's a sucker, seriously, like, I mean, that's, and I mean, but what you say about time there, because I've received multiple of those letters. My children have received them. Right. And there's time on the front end. There's time on the back end. Right. Number one, we received one time that said, we're sorry, but a breach that happened 13 months ago, your data may have been leaked, right? So we received one that said, hey, by the way, over a year ago, your stuff may have been out there for the past 13 months, right? And then, my thought was always about, what about the kids, right? Like if you've got, if you provide a 14-year-old or 15-year-old with credit monitoring for 2 years, so what? What happens when he turns 18? That's the critical point, right? When you can go out and you can apply for bank accounts or credit cards or whatever else that's out there, you know. So that time window may be completely and totally worthless. The real issue is when they hit a older age and now they can use that information, you know. So no, I feel you, man, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, my credit's frozen, so I'm not worried about that. But everything else, who knows? All right, Andy, what's your hot cake? I don't want to leave our guest hanging in the wings too long.
No, it's all good. So I'm gonna share my screen a little bit here, and my hot cake is.
I have to share your screen. There we go.
There we go. Yep. The largest brewer in Japan, Asahi. Will, have you ever had a Japanese beer before, by the way?
No, when I think Japan, I typically go for sake.
Yeah. I think everybody's in that boat. I've never had a Japanese beer, but apparently the Budweiser of Japan was hacked. And if you read down here, right, late last month, right, had to shut down. They have 30 factories nationwide that had to shut down. So we've got that business interruption, things like that. And it says that they're back up taking orders using pen, paper, and fax machines. And I just, when I read this, I was like, Oscar Ramirez from our team shared this the other day. So shout out to Oscar, because I was the first time I heard about this. Could you imagine Budweiser being on fax machines and pen and paper like that? I mean, to put it into American context, that's crazy.
I don't even know what that would mean.
And here, this is where it ties into what you shared, which I think is really interesting, right? What about that PII, right? What are they going to do with that? And where they're at in the process right now is they're investigating whether or not personal information was stolen in the attack. So not only has the largest brewer in Japan suffered a business interruption event, right? Who knows if they had product go bad, you know, what about reputational harm? Were competitors, did business go their direction?
Yeah.
All of that stuff. Now we've got to figure out, did we have PII leak, and do I have to send notification out to the Will Brookses of the world that were in my database, which makes the cost of the breach go that much higher.
Imagine you like our beer. Well, now you lost your data.
There you go. Yeah. So, and the other thing that it kind of elicited out of me is like, people are so passionate about beer and taste and everything. You know, it made me think like, just thinking about our cultural moment, like if Budweiser went down over here, like half of the world would think it was a good thing, half would think it was a bad thing, So I just kind of just musing here, I wonder what the response in Japan is. I wonder if everybody's upset or if they're like, beer tastes like not good anyway,
Yeah, it's just water, man. Yep. So, all right. So before we bring Caden in, do you want to throw that video up? And I think I can make it so that he appears in the background after the fact. So he's just there.
Nice. Yes. Let's do that. Let's go with so today's title is 3 Men and a Breach. And we are referencing the just piece of cinematic gold from the 1980s featuring Ted Danson, Steve Guttenberg, and Tom Selleck, 3 Men and a Baby. So let's watch a clip here from that video or that movie.
How you doing today, huh? My name is Johnny. That's right. But you can call me Mr. Cool. You know what I'm saying? Hey, what's your name, huh? Haven't I seen you around the neighborhood? Come on, baby. Wait, what's the matter? You got your tongue? Why can't you talk? Huh? Come on, kid. Laugh it up. I'm doing my best. Mr. Foley, I need to check on pay on the food.
Excuse me. Is this a good meal for a baby?
That's for toddlers.
A toddler? What's a toddler?
Year and a half, 2 years.
No, I need something for a baby.
This is your first.
First what?
Baby.
Yeah, first and the last.
No matter how much you prepare, you're never quite ready for him, are you?
No, you're not.
Did you know that what an infant eats in its first 12 months can determine its entire psychological and physical future?
That's fascinating, but all I need is some food. Just some food, that's all. Edna, what's the best-selling brand?
Oh, that white can over there.
Great. This is the best, then?
No, it's the cheapest. That's why it sells the most.
How about this one, then?
Oh, that's good.
Good.
But it's got iron in it.
Is that bad?
It is if your baby's allergic to it.
How do you know if she's allergic to it?
They'd throw up all over you. Of course, they'd throw up all over you, even if they're not allergic to it, too. Some babies can't hold anything down for more than a minute.
What about this one?
That's for older babies. How old's your baby?
About that old.
You don't know how old your baby is?
Yes, I do. I know how old my baby is.
Is she teething?
Teething?
Well, does she cry all night? Does she chew on her fist and drool a lot?
All right, I'll take 3 of these, and I'll take some of these. And thanks very much for your time, Edna.
All right.
Caden, hello.
Hello, how's it going, guys?
Pretty good, man. Doing real well. Andy, I saw so many cyber ties there, man. Now I understand why you wanted to use that clip.
We'll reference back to it, right? But no, Caden, I appreciate you hopping on, man. I know we've worked with you and your agency for a minute here, and have been on a lot of discussions lately. But if you don't mind, give us a little background on Braly Insurance and yourself, please, sir.
Yeah. So Braly Insurance Group was started by my dad in 1997. We were originally a nationwide captive agency up until 2016, when Nationwide kind of said, "See you later, captive agents. Everybody's going independent." And then from there, we started to grow with a bunch of different carriers. And the last 5-6 years since I got on, I think I came on in 2020, we have developed to an international agency. So we write business in most all the United States, as well as a few different countries as well. Pretty cool stuff that we're doing. And then the last 2-3 years, we've really gotten deep into cyber insurance, tech E&O, things like that. We consider ourselves a boutique agency because there's certain things that we do and there's certain things that we don't do, and we're pretty upfront with that. And we like that because we can really select who we work with rather than just kind of generalist and working with every single person that comes through the door. So that's a 10,000 foot view.
No, it's good, man. And I'm interested because your timing and my timing is very close, right? You said you came into the insurance industry in 2020. I came in 2019, and you're a guy that loves cyber and works with MSPs. And I'm a guy that loves cyber and works with MSPs. And Will's a guy that loves cyber and works with MSPs. He came in. Will, what year did you get cranked up?
In cyber specifically?
Yes. Yeah.
2021. I think.
So all right there around COVID, right? So I'm interested to know, Caden, from your just in your background, and we'll dive into the topic today, which we'll get into, third-party breaches, like what is third-party business interruption, what's contingent business interruption, all that good stuff. Like, how does it tie to insurance? Before we get into that, like, give me an idea of kind of why cyber. Anytime we have an agent on with Will and I, and we walk through, cyber insurance related topics, this is a very, very niche part of our industry. Like, what led you to cyber, man?
So just being that a lot of, one is I kind of had dip my toe in the water per se, about 3 years ago, with a few tech companies, with a few MSPs. And it was encouraging because the tech companies and the MSPs, they really cared about that. I can't tell you the number of times prior to that when I'm working with, fill in the blank company that, I love to death, but it was always about price. It was always about, can I get a cheaper price? Can I get a cheaper price? Even if they didn't need a cheaper price, their rates were flat. They're like, hey, shop, I want to lower my rates. And it's like, you don't do that with every other thing. So why are you doing it with your insurance? Right. And so when I dip my toe, started working with a few of those companies, they talked to me significantly. They wanted to know the coverages. They wanted to review the policies. The pricing was important, but it was, 5, 6, or 7 on the list of importance for them. Right. And then also the risk management side of cyber is so closely related to the actual insurance itself. So you have guys and girls that care about the risk management, about taking care, about preventing claims. When a lot of other companies, again, it's just based off of, am I covered per se? Because that's a very subjective term. And, is the price, is it good? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the initial thing. And then also our agency is almost fully remote. We have people spread from coast to coast that work for us from home 24/7. They don't work 24/7. Don't want to get that. But we have people that work coast to coast, and they people that are in the cyber world that focus a lot on whether it's a SaaS company, they have a lot of tech E&O, an MSP, cybersecurity vendor. They tend to be more open to working with a remote agency, one that truly solves their needs rather than the local broker down the street and off Main Street. That's really kind of pushes them away a lot, is working with your local broker. So having that strategic mindset that we can work with anybody in the world and we're specialists in what we do, we just found it really easy to do business with a lot of other companies. So,
yeah. Dude, that's it's interesting too, right? I mean, it makes a lot of sense that if you're a fully remote agency, meaning you have people all over the world, all over the country, then the understanding of the importance of good cyber hygiene, I think, is a lot more relevant. A lot of these brick and mortar stores, insurance agencies, shops, whatever you go into, a lot of times you have to kind of fight for them to understand the necessity of cyber, because their whole mindset of where the internet lives is on those machines in their building. And maybe I collect some credit card payments. Like, they're not thinking how big and how accessible their business is to the insanity of the internet, right? And when you work remote and your whole business is remote, I think you have a little bit, at least, of a better understanding of what that's all about. So did that feed the cyber level too, of just being like, hey, we're all over the place, we should probably have good cyber hygiene ourselves?
Yeah, it was when working with these companies, their knowledge is the one that truly prompted them to get quality insurance, because they understand what's going on. They know the length, depth, and breadth of the internet, of the cyber exposures there. And, trying to sell cyber insurance to a contractor is not the easiest thing in the world. It's just not. They don't understand it. And then once you realize, okay, with the cyber insurance claims, there's not like $10,000 cyber claims. Very rare. They're cat claims per se. They're $2, $3, $4, $5 million claims every time. Now, it's they don't happen as often as rear-ending a vehicle and having to get a comp claim, because those are pretty small and you can just knock it out. If there's a claim, it's all hands on deck to figure out, how do we prevent this? How do we mitigate this and then prevent it from happening again? So it makes me feel good about my job. Like, I'm actually doing something. I'm not just a little quote wizard plugging in numbers and giving it to a person making the payment. It actually requires legitimate knowledge of the industry that you're writing in, as well as cyber insurance and tech.
Yeah, there's no cyber fender benders.
No,
it's not a thing.
Very few. And I'll say, Caden, as a fellow Southerner, I know for me, you're a state away, although the area that you live in is much more tech driven than the area that I live in. But providing good education to an area that doesn't understand cyber well as Silicon Valley or New York City or whatever, I know for me personally, there was a little bit of a drive there of like, man, I'm doing my state, my region, my county a solid by going out and bringing people into the new age and educate them about new types of risk, right? We've got business owners in our area and large, folks that our community depends on, right? They employ thousands of people. They've been around, they've been in business for 50, 60, 70 years. It has no idea about their cyber risk, right? So kind of getting folks up to snuff, kind of educating them on how they can lose money, miss payroll, stuff like that, which leads us into our topic of the day, which is third-party risk and contingent business interruption. So before we dive into this thing, before we relate back to Tom Selleck and Steve Gutenberg there dealing with that baby, give us kind of a high level of, I think in the early days of cyber, everybody was so focused on their own ransomware event, right? And then we started, COVID, post-COVID, AI area. We've seen a lot of cybercrime of people like, getting invoice manipulated, seeing funds transfer fraud, things like that. But there's been this kind of slowly evolving thing of third-party risk, right? Talk to us a little bit about how third-party outage, like what does that mean? Who is the third party? How can it affect the business? Give us kind of a high level of third-party risk, if you don't mind.
Yeah, the basis of third-party We're going to take the example of like an MSP is the one holding the policy. Okay. Third party is any of the vendors or channel vendors that they use goes down for one reason or another. They get hacked. There's some sort of issue. Think of the CrowdStrike, right? Say an MSP is using CrowdStrike for whatever the case is going to be. And now because they went down, the MSP can no longer provide the services needed to maintain what they have either by contract with the client. Now the client can't use their certain things. I mean, y'all remember when CrowdStrike went down, we couldn't send an email. Like we couldn't do anything. Like I was twiddling my thumbs for a couple hours. All that to say, that's the basis of third-party business interruption is if something goes down, me as an MSP cannot do my job the way that I'm supposed to.
So I, the first party insured, I've done nothing wrong. I haven't had a breach, but one of my vendors has had a breach and it affects my ability to do business. Now, here's the question, and I know everybody on the call knows this, but I want to state it out loud for the group, right? I've got general liability. I've got a BOP, right? There's BI on that. I mean, like you guys educated me about business interruption coverage whenever you sold me this. Doesn't that just fall under regular old business interruption, man?
That is so wrong. It's funny.
Yeah.
Business income on a BOP is predicated on property damage.
Yep.
That's it. Yep. There is no business income. Let's just say a lot, and this is a big thing during COVID, is, oh, my business is going down. I can't do business. Let me claim a business income claim. And that's not how that works. Business income is based off of your building or your business personal property. Right. If that's damaged or something along those lines where it cannot be used in the scope of your business, then yes, you can file a business income claim. There's a whole process to determine how much you're going to get from the insurance carrier to, I like to say, keep the lights on, right? They're not going to pay you a massive amount of money. You're not going to make more than you probably would based off of an averaged certain amount of months. But it's enough so that you don't have to let go your employees. You can pay your electric bill. You can pay your building, your mortgage on your building or whatever it is. For cyber, that's nothing. There's no cyber incident at all. There have been some cases where people have tried to make it, but
So if I have a cyber attack, it's not covered, but if the telephone line that carries the coaxial cable that brings me my internet falls on my building and damages it, then it is covered. Different type of cyber attack.
Yeah, that's one of those things where the carrier is going to be like, all right, let's talk about this.
Yeah, let's get into the details.
Yeah, because there's so much nuance to certain
it's weird.
Nothing's ever the same at all.
Yeah.
So
and you mentioned COVID. I mean, man, we lived those days, right? And I mean, maybe Will didn't because he came in a little bit later. But I mean, I remember the first time that one of my buddies who was a dental office calling me and going, "Hey, can I file business income?" And it's like, And then you get into those exclusions, and you have exclusions for communicable disease. You have exclusions for cyber event. Like it's written into the policy. Yeah. For a BOP policy for business income that cyber events are not covered, right?
Actually. It's super nice that I came in when I did because it was a year and a half after the whole COVID fiasco started. And so when I came in, security controls were starting to be kind of at the very least looked at by carriers. Yep. So I came in and the first thing I learned was good security. Whereas a lot of other agents, I mean, they're like, what's changing? I never even knew BOP cyber. Like that wasn't even a thing.
Right.
Because when I was in insurance back in 2016, we weren't writing cyber policies. And then I quit after a year and a half because I was like, I hate this. And went off and I don't hate insurance. I just didn't like working general. I went off and did other things. And then I came back into the insurance world just doing cyber. I didn't even know BOPs existed until an agent asked me to do a policy comparison with one. And I was like, I went to my superior or my direct report and I was like, this seems like it doesn't have anything on it. What's up? And I was right. It didn't have anything on it. Yeah. So that was real early in my cyber career. But yeah, wild.
Well, around that time, Will, that you were coming in, I was really starting to, down here in the South, kind of kick my tires with cyber. I was meeting MSPs. I was getting in with CISA, right? And Caden, I think you've heard me tell this story before, but I was on stage with CISA may not should have been, but I've used the term over and over again. In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king, right? But I was listening to a guy named Mark Kirby, who is the regional director for CISA for Arkansas and Oklahoma back in 21-22, about the time Will came in. And he said, we really don't see this a whole lot now. He was like, but the world is becoming more interconnected by the day, right? And he started going down this third-party risk management route. He's like, everybody's worried about their own ransomware event. Everybody's worried about their own bank account. But what happens when you onboard, and he used like the Target breach as an example, Target massive breach hit the news. Really where that came from was their HVAC contractor. He mentioned that. He was like, I see a day. I don't know when it's going to be, 26, 27, 30, whatever. But I see a day where before an entity goes into business with a third party on a daily basis, on a contractual basis, that they vet their cybersecurity posture, right? Like you have to be, to use Will's term, I've heard him say this, you have to be this tall to ride the ride, right? And we need you to insure yourself. So where is that at right now, man? Just interested to know from what you're seeing out there. I mean, is it okay if I'm a business and I'm going into business with another business, or I'm hiring them as a vendor? Is it okay for me to say, hey, I need you to have your own cyber insurance in order for us to work together?
100%. Yeah. Well, I don't know. Like I'm in the next, and I started saying this around probably late 23, early 24. In the next 5 years, cyber insurance will be required of all contracts, just like general liability is. It's just going to be hey, if you want to do business with us, here's what you got to have. Because like we said, the claims, they're not little $5,000 rear end, comp claims. They are 6-7 figure claims. And if something's not covered correctly, or there's not any coverage there, somebody's going to pay for it. It's just who. And the people that are doing business, they don't want to have that risk or exposure. So if they realize, if something goes wrong, we could be on the hook for paying 6-figure, 7-figure claims. We need people, all of our contracts to have cyber insurance. And, the businesses are going to complain about it. They're like, well, this is dumb. We don't want to do this. It costs more money. And it's like, honestly, like, think a little bit.
Right.
Think. The business that you're doing business with, that you are contracted with, does not want to pay millions of dollars in claims because you wanted to save a couple $100 a month.
Right.
It's just not worth it. It's not worth it to them. They would rather go to somebody else who actually cares about cybersecurity, actually cares about doing quality business. And you're going to see those people that don't want to comply, that like, I don't want to pay this extra, because like we're in a soft cyber market right now. It's fairly cheap. Once things start getting worse, and we've heard the rumblings, of the next couple of years, especially if you're in one of those like protected data, like hospitals, attorneys, MSPs, SaaS companies, all those, and your cyber insurance starts creeping up to be as expensive, if not more, than your GL. People are going to say, okay, well, let's see what's going on with this. This must be something important. I think overall, cyber insurance is something that has to be looked at big time. It has to be like, okay, let's get to a point now where this is a common thing that everybody knows about, that everybody has, not this like taboo coverage that is added on to a bot policy. I wouldn't even be surprised in the next couple of years, the bot carriers or whatever it is, GL carriers, take it off completely. They don't even add it as an option because it is so claim heavy. It is so cat claim heavy, and they're just like, we can't do this anymore. It's just not profitable, or the coverages are going to be so bad that you're pretty much paying for nothing.
Right. I would be curious to see the loss for like the loss ratios on like BOP policies across carriers, and what their, what portion of the BOP premium goes towards that cyber component versus how much they're paying out.
I'd say
they don't require anything.
I bet you the loss ratio is pretty low because it's not covering anything.
Right. But at the same time, they don't require anything.
Exactly.
So it's like weird, right? Because it's like, I guess that's how they're kind of covering their butts. No pun intended. But the other side of this that I think is interesting, and it's we're always kind of comparing cyber to other lines of coverage, but it is so different, right? Like if I go buy a new car, it might not be the fanciest car because I'm cheap and didn't go buy a really, really fancy, nice car, but I still made the choice to buy that car. And I bought that car, and hopefully that car has at least a couple of nice little features that knock down the premium on my car insurance policy. But I'm getting that car insurance policy partially because it's required by law, but two, I want to protect my investment of a car that I wanted to buy, right? But that was my purchase, was the car, and then I have to pay car insurance on top of it. Same with a house. Like I bought a house. Yes, the bank requires me to have insurance, but I'm also glad I have it because if something happens to this home that I bought, well, something goes wrong. With cyber, it's like, great, I started a business and I see the importance of cyber coverage. Yeah, maybe it's not being required, but I should go get a cyber policy. But then to go get it, I'm now being told, oh, well, you actually have to spend all this additional money on these security measures, right? So there is an education issue, and there's a challenging issue here of you are partially overcoming the conversation of saying like, yeah, you're investing in a lot here. It's not just like you're buying an auto policy or a homeowner's policy. You're literally, your underwriting is based on other things you've had to buy to protect your business. And that can be a big lift for someone who's not necessarily tech savvy. So how have you overcome that kind of conversation in the past? Because the security control one is real.
Yeah, that's the hardest part. Like you can even convince people to get cyber, but to tell them, hey, you actually have to have all these things or else you don't have any coverage available. That's the hard part, because there's certain situations where them investing, like going to an MSP to provide all those certain things, is going to be more expensive than the cyber policy over the long term. Now, if it's required, it's required. And this is sad to say, but when I look at the term risk strategy, right, that is a very vague wording to say sometimes, and this is just the case, businesses will say we need the coverage just to get the contract. We don't care if there's coverage or not. Now, that's a risk strategy. It's not a good one. It's actually a really bad one, borderline illegal one. But if you're making sure that, okay, is there a way we can take these certain requirements and either lower the price, have certain relationships with MSPs that work with people that saying, hey, we're not the most tech savvy people in the world. We need help with this. We don't want to spend a lot of money, but we want to make sure we're covered correctly on our cyber insurance and that we prevent claims from happening. If those MSPs start to come out of the woodworks, there's just a big need for that. There's a big need for the entry level the MSP to help with entry level clients. And there's some out there, but the MSPs would, business wise, they would rather work with larger companies because it pays more money to them. So there is a big gap, and there's not a lot you can do right now. It's going to be the larger corporations forcing their hand to say, what happens? Let's just say this. What happens? Cyber insurance, you're required to have a $2 million limit. Okay, great. You can just say, oh, I got cyber insurance, right? Here's my COI. Here's proof of coverage. Let's say you are paying for it. Now, what happens if the contract says we actually need to see proof of all of your cybersecurity offerings to make sure that coverage is in place? Yep. That's when we got a big problem. If that happens, the only thing that I can think to say to the customers is, I'm sorry, suck it up. Do you want to do business or not?
I think there's probably also another piece that as carriers continue to get better at their cyber underwriting, they are playing security control requirements off of kind of business industries and revenues and things like that. Like they're not going to expect I always use this example, but like a dodgeball emporium that makes $100K a year to carry the same level of security as maybe a hospital that is bringing in 75 million a year and is handling all those records. So, but it still stands that there is an investment in security that needs to happen, and frankly, like a lot of it is educational though, because while there are things you need to pay for, like EDR, MDR, backup solutions, things like that, there are also a lot of things that, like, MFA is free in most places.
Yeah,
like you can get upgraded things that make sure tools that make sure MFA is on everything. But at the end of the day, like if you can get MFA on your email, MFA on your bank account stuff, MFA on, whatever, it's just, there are pretty much everything you sign into today has MFA as a free option. So then it just comes down to education and laziness on the part of the business owner and saying like, look, you need the cyber coverage. We've been through that whole thing. You just need to enable this stuff. Just do it.
Yeah. The education part, it's not pushed very hard in the insurance retail agent space,
right?
Because it's just not known. It's
not understood.
Yeah. Yep. Understood. That's one. And two, to the people that are where it is understood, it's hard to push that to say, you got to spend more money and more money and more money. And they don't understand it because general liability or commercial auto is straightforward. You don't have to purchase 17 other things or 5 other things to make sure that coverage is in place. To be honest with you, if we're looking at certain industries, the cyber insurance is not going to pay nearly the same as the general liability or commercial auto. It's just the way, contractors cyber, depending on how large they are, is going to be a lot smaller than a SaaS company or a hospital. So the intention or the enticement of the agent to push it really hard, it's just not there because they're going to get 12% on $5,000 in premium versus, a hospital that's getting 15% on $300,000. It's just, it's hard. It's a hard market to push to agents right now. And we're trying to do as best we can. And that's why you see a lot of agents now that they specialize in high dollar cyber or tech E&O, because they're like, it's easier to push that with those larger companies than the smaller ones.
Yeah. A lot of times when you're working with a smaller business, those other lines that you mentioned as an agent going in, unless it's a brand new business, right? You're going in to compete against some other agent who already kind of wrote those lines. So you're able to go in and effectively ask questions around their current coverage and see if you can effectively make their coverage better, right? Like, let me fix your problems. When it comes to cyber, how do you ask someone who really doesn't understand cyber what problems they currently have with their current cyber insurance policy? Like, most people don't even know what's covered. Like, when Andy and I have done webinars with some of our MSP and agent partners to their client base, when we go through like what's actually covered on a cyber policy, and then we kind of just ask a show of hands, like, hey, who here has one of these comprehensive policies? It's usually like 1 or 2 people. Not realizing that so much was covered, that, yes, e-theft and commercial crime, cyber crime stuff is covered, but there's, like we talked about, the third party stuff. There's a lot. It's almost like the mind of the client is ransomware is where they always go, right? But then it's like, if my business is down, then my goal is just get back up online really fast. And like what I was sharing at the beginning of this, that my mortgage broker got hacked, and now they're sending out credit monitoring letters for the next year. And it's just, it's a lot longer. It's kind of your point earlier, Caden. It's not just a fender bender. There's a lot that goes into recovering from this. So to ask someone, hey, what's wrong with your current cyber policy? I don't know.
Yep. And let's take that back to, let's go back to the video, right? Like, so your crying baby is your third party interruption, right? Like, you have this thing that's been dropped on you that you didn't expect, and you're trying to get it to stop, right? What are the key coverages there that you need? And what we always try to do on Hotcakes, man, as much as we can, we know this is a complex topic. Every time we go through this, we try to send people with like kind of a blessing for the road, right? Like, here are the things to go do better. If you've got a third party breach on your hands, and you're Steve Gutenberg trying to get Chester Cheetah to get it to stop, and you're Tom Selleck in the aisle going, which one do I grab? I'll just get all of them, right? What do we need to have from an insurance standpoint on the front end to make sure that we're indemnified, right? In my mind, and this is Andy's opinion, first of all, dependent business interruption is number one, right? And Caden, I'll let you hit on that as we land the plane here. The other thing is reputational harm. We talk about this with our MSPs all the time. Do your customers understand cyber enough to know that the third party breach was not your fault, and not just write you an email and say, hey, we're going to your competitor, right? Like, what if CrowdStrike goes down for an MSP and that affects their customer, right? Does the customer understand things well enough to not blame the MSP and just hop, skip, jump over to somebody else? So reputational harm is key, number one. But the number, also two, dependent business interruption. Give us some guidance there on it's. And I know sometimes, and this is where cyber kind of sucks, Sometimes it's called contingent business interruption. Sometimes it's called dependent business interruption. How does that coverage work?
Yeah. So, I mean, if we're talking about how it works per se, and there's a whole claim process, every carrier is a little bit different.
Right.
In terms of what we need to actually do to make sure that that's in place, is if you're going into a contract with any vendor, as an MSP, or even as a downstream client of an MSP, you want to make sure, and some of this may seem overboard, but this is what I say: if you want to prevent it, you got to do what you have to do what you have to do to prevent it. If I'm an MSP, I'm going to ask every single vendor that I use for a copy of their insurance, not their COI. Hear me out. Not the certificate of insurance. That doesn't mean nothing.
The actual cyber policy.
The actual cyber policy. I want to see a copy of that. And I want to see that the dependent business interruption is not sublimited. Cannot be sublimited.
Bingo. So, yeah. And man, I've seen it. I personally have gone in to a car dealership. I remember early when FTC safeguard rules hit, right? And they were like, hey, come help us out. Talk to us about this. And they were like, we've been with our insurer forever, but we're not really sure about their cyber stuff. And it was like, guys, contingent business interruption is not covered at all on this, right? Like, yes, you have $500,000 of coverage, but there is no contingent business interruption. And we walked through that. They got a different policy. And in less than 12 months, CDK Global hit. Right. I mean, it was one of those things where it just worked out like it worked out. So yeah, absolutely okay to tell them, hey, I need to see your policy, go through with a specialist, whether it's a retail agent like Caden or a wholesaler like UKON, but somebody that understands cyber, and have them peel through. And then my advice, what I would say is like, yes, look through the policy and make sure the coverages are there. Right. But also identify who your vendors are that are key to your revenue, right? I mean, we've had scenarios here in Northeast Arkansas where manufacturers were able to get the thing to the end of the line and produce the widget, but they couldn't make payroll for 2 pay cycles, right? Pretty key thing, So identify who those third parties are, identify those vulnerabilities, and then create, and this is a segue into our next Hotcakes will, create an incident response plan, right? Know where those cracks are, and then have a plan, of where to go when the thing does happen.
Yeah, that's a very solid way of thinking, because third party, business, whatever you want to call it, dependent business interruption, third party business interruption, contingent, whatever. It's the only coverage that you have to have faith that that the business that you're working with has the correct coverage in place, right? Because let's be honest, the first thing that you want to do, you don't want to have to file third party. There's certain cyber insurance in place for the other people that can help mitigate that. That's the first step. You want to make sure that all your vendors are properly covered. Just like if I was an oil and gas company, I want to make sure that everyone that I work with has the proper insurance. Just like your general liability, I want to make sure my subcontractors have general liability in place. You want to do the same thing, but with your channel vendors. And then 2 is, like you said, take the step to see which ones are absolutely paramount that they have the correct coverage in place, and then make sure you have the correct coverage in place. I was working with a guy who had not had only 100,000 independent business interruption for 7-8 years and had no clue. An MSP. And you expect the MSPs to have their solid coverage in place, but he did not. So those are the 3 main steps that I would take to make sure that things are properly taken care of.
Yeah. No, thank you so much. I appreciate you hopping on. It's been really good. I know this is a thorny topic. This is not one it's not really fun to talk about.
Oh, it's so fun.
I mean, man, listen, if there was stuff, honestly, as a business owner, if there was stuff that was going to keep me up at night, I mean, I feel like I can pretty well control funds transfer fraud and invoice manipulation, right? I can pretty well control through cybersecurity, ransomware. Dependent business interruption gets squirrely, man. It's pretty scary. So, you're at the behest of your vendors there. But no, I appreciate you hopping on, man. Always enjoy visiting. Will, final thoughts from me. I'll start. Next Hotcakes is going to be on Halloween. So our next episode will actually be on Halloween. We may or may not have some costumes involved at that
You
point.
might have to dress up like Martin Luther.
Yeah. No, that's good. Yeah, I love it. No, we've got Greg Bugby coming on from Novus Insights. We're going to be talking about having a plan around cyber breaches, incident response plans. I always had a plan. I know 9-year-old Andy always had a plan when I went out to go trick or treating, right? So we should always have a plan, for our cyber business as well. So anything from you, man, before we run?
No, Caden, thank you for jumping on here. For anybody who watches this later, you can check him out. You have a really long LinkedIn URL. You know,
I need to change that.
But for now, this is what it is. So you can't change it for at least a week. But just because if anyone watches this video and they try to find you, they won't be able, or they can just search, Caden Braly, ERIS, but Braly, not Bradley. Braly? I would never.
You got there. Hey, third time's the charm, man.
When I saw Braly, when I heard Braly before, I was like, I just thought of Dragon Ball Z, which was getting me real nerdy and down the road now. So I'm just going to stay away from that whole conversation because Andy won't be able to follow it at all.
Sorry. Yeah.
So, Caden, it was awesome to have you on here, man. I'm excited for the next one. But honestly, let's keep these conversations going. For anyone listening in, follow Caden, follow us, just jump in because we really want to make sure that cyber is accessible because we talk about all this stuff, but it's not that hard. It's just a lot of information. And that's that whole educational component is if we can really help people understand the need for it and the fact that it's worth investing in, everyone's going to be a little bit safer. So That's it for me. Thanks everybody for listening in. We'll catch you next time.
All right. See you guys.